So, welcome to the show today. Today I have Sandra-Stella Triebl with me, and she calls herself a misfit and entrepreneur, and I'm very excited to hear that story. So, Sandra, thank you so much for being on the show today. Tell us a little bit more about Sandra. Who is Sandra and or Sandra-Stella, depending on what you want to pick. I just go with Sandra today. Tell us a bit more about who you are and what got us, what's the story behind that got us to where we are today.
Well, how much time do we have? That's epic. Let's make it short. What brings me here is a constant curiosity for life, a constant curiosity for people, and straight to the point, that's it. What brings me here at the end of the day. I always was a curious kid. My mother did not like it that much. She came from an Italian, French, very poor family background. And she had this daughter who's connected with everybody, who's talkative, who's talking to everybody, who's going out, who wants to make phone calls to the doctors by herself. And I think she felt quite neglected by her daughter. Because we had this conversation years later before she died. My mom died 8 years ago. And 2 years before she died, she mentioned that to me. You always get me that feeling that you don't need me. And that was so tough for me. And I adored you and I envied you. And so we had quite a troubled relationship. And this was very crucial to me for all my life. When you have in your inner circle, in your family, a relationship with your mom, I always loved, but who was full of tension and full of misunderstandings until the very end. And good luck, we could solve it at the end. But that's something really influencing you. And maybe that this ambivalence, this curiosity I had, and this holding me back from my mom, that was quite a thing for my whole story and how I developed later on.
So there's this common theme of curiosity that comes up. You said it a couple of times. So along the way over, the past many years, where did that curiosity get you to? Like, what is the journey that got you, that got this curiosity, got you on?
I think this curiosity brought me to the point that I was never afraid of something. That may sound a bit weird, but I'm not really afraid. I was with my grandmom when she died when I was 19 or 20. So I was never afraid of death. I was never afraid of dying. I was never afraid of losing. I was never afraid of falling or break something, ruin something, mess something up. Because I thought I can always stand up and do it better next time, and I can learn it. So again, that was something with my mom and even with my dad. They freaked out about me because they said, well, that's hot, don't touch it. I touched it because I had to feel it for myself. So that's how I learned. That's how I developed my skills. But that brought me to, for instance, to a very early, my first job was for a German radio station. It was the first private radio station in Baden-Württemberg, and I was the sports reporter there with not even 16 years, because I come from a family background who's very sporty. My brothers played football until National League B. My dad was in the national cadre of athletics, so he was several times Swiss champion, 800 and 1,000 meter. And I was Swiss champion of 80 meters when I was 12. So, and I was known in the neighborhood as pretty talkative and open and connective. And when this radio station in Germany opened, and I grew up right across the border to Germany in Steinseckringen. So my neighbor was editor-in-chief of that radio station, and they were looking for young talents in that field, and they asked me if I would do some sport things like football matches. So I started to comment football matches when FC Basel was back in the days in Nationalliga B. So together with the FC Zurich. And so that's my whole media career started back then. And my mom was always, please, kid, just do something in your life. You can earn money with talking. And it's so funny that I still do that because I host a lot of events, my own conferences. I love to talk. I love to connect with people. And I do earn money with it. And sometimes I feel like maybe she can watch me and maybe she's proud meanwhile that you really can earn money with talking. Like, that's awesome. So that's what brought me.
That is really interesting. First of all, this is not very Swiss.
No.
when you said, I'm not afraid of things, I'm not afraid of failing, and well, that's all that isn't Swiss. And I find that really interesting because sometimes you look at a culture and we can say that we're both basically Swiss, at least part Swiss. And in the Swiss culture, it's very often a bit driven by just safety first, and never fail, and what is the neighbor gonna think?
My dad worked for an insurance company.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's always interesting to see these misfits like you and me in this in a culture or in anything, in a company, in whatever. Because I find that always interesting in talking to those people and figuring like what makes those people tick, like what makes them go outside of the boxes. So it's very interesting.
Do you think about going outside of the box or being outside of your comfort zone? You just do it because it feels normal to you. And when you grow up, you realize that you're different, that you solve problems differently, that you talk differently, that you see things differently, that you feel things maybe others do not feel to the same extent. And for me, it's just natural. That's just me. I never thought about how am I or how should I be or how do people want to see me. That sounds weird again, maybe, but I don't care what people think about me because I can't change myself. I want to be my essence, and I want to as truthful to people as I can. And I'm not afraid of showing everything, all my essence. I'm not afraid because, what's the worst thing that can happen? People can neglect you. They can think she's weird, she's dumb, she's bonkers, whatever. But it won't change my essence because my essence is something I cannot change. That's just something very beautiful. And that's how I see it.
I love it. And there's so many golden nuggets in there that you shared that I learned along the way. And I sometimes feel like women get it easier and faster than men. For us, it always, our ego needs to buy in, first of all, as well. And our rational side needs to.
Yeah, women tend to need to ask a friend or a mom, or can I do that? Should I really do it? That's the other thing women tend to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's what I love about, and I guess that gets us to the next piece. That's what I love about, this. There's this whole thing about diversity out there, right? And we had an interesting conversation last time about this. And, for a long time, I feel like diversity has been a lot about just women. And it's all about, just women. So let the business world be ruled by women now or something like that. I think that's totally insane. As it's insane.
That would be insane that when women would rule the world, maybe, you never know what would have happened.
No, I agree, but it's either. What I'm saying is, it's not about either women ruling the world or men ruling the world. It's about first of all, it's not about ruling, and second, it's about doing something together. And I want to talk about that because you've been in this world of empowerment, world of female entrepreneurship, female leadership, in this world for quite a while, and you've done some really interesting things there. So. First, maybe tell us a little bit about what you've been up to in this world. And second, what is it that got you into this? Like, what is it that really drives you to make those changes?
Well, again, here, it was no strategy. I'm not a strategist. I'm not a chess player. I just felt I had my own company for 2 or 3 years. After having the 200 years anniversary for the Canton Aargau. for the government. It was a huge, huge party, 2003, with almost 140 different kind of projects. You may remember the Barek Hochdraai Fest with up to 400,000 people partying there. And that was a huge thing. And after that, I founded my own company and started to work for different investors in the media field. I was in charge of creating and establishing a car fleet magazine on the Swiss market for the investors. And I had that up and running within 2 years. Meanwhile, it belongs to one of the large publishing houses in Switzerland. And after that experience, I was, I think, on a plane from Wolfsburg. I visited Volkswagen there, back to my place, and I wanted to buy a magazine for me. And I realized there are just fashion magazines or Bunte or Gala, so celebrities, gossip. I'm not into gossip. I love stylish things. I love fashion, but not on 250 pages. So I was really like in between the style magazines and the economic driven or economy papers or Times magazine, whatever, but nothing with a female touch. And I came back and I told that to my husband, who's a singer-songwriter. And I was like, to be honest, a lot of these magazines don't reflect me. They, I always feel a little bit stupid when I read them. And I mean, I have a university degree. I'm pretty intelligent. I can handle quite like complex things. I'm able like to process that. I have an active brain, left and right side. So I just thought something is missing on the market. And my husband was like, what you're waiting for? You have been in the field for how many years? You studied media sciences, so go ahead. Don't wait that somebody does it for you, just do it yourself. And I'm thankful that for that push and that direction from my husband. And actually we just founded the company. I did what you call a Nullnummer. So as a zero number, issue 0, I showed that around to different marketing head of marketings in different companies, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's awesome! That's so new." I mean, that's 11 years ago, and a lot of them were like, "Okay, we do ads in it." And after 10 or 12 meetings, we knew that we can get over the first year, that we can pay all bills, that we don't have to get an investor on board, that we can really start that adventure and that journey. So we did it. And then everything came along the way, like always, not really planned.
That's another thing I love what you just shared. I mean, first of all, you have this entrepreneurial DNA right there built into this zero number, because you didn't go out and say, let's build a magazine, so to say. It was more like, okay, let's just create something and then go around, talk to a couple of people and see what they say and see what the feedback is, see what people tell us about this and everything. And if they're interested in, taking out their credit card, right, so to say, opening their wallet. Because at the end of the day, you don't know if somebody is willing to buy until they buy, right? It's kind of like what it is. So I find that really interesting. And then also like what you said, there's not like this huge strategy behind it. Let's just go out and try something and see what happens. Because, I mean, let's be honest, looking back over the past, 10, 11 years, you would probably have not expected 99% of the things that happened in any way. Like you couldn't have predicted anything, after that number 0, basically, because that's how the world works, right? That's why stock market is so difficult, because we can't really predict the future. It's impossible. We can make assumptions, but then there's no way around testing them. So I find that really, really interesting. Now, on this pursuit of, what you've been building, the journey you've been on, if you had to point out 1 or 2 specific examples of key lessons you learned, what would you point out?
My whole life. I mean, everything is just a big lesson. But I mean, life is a playground. We're here to play, to experience ourselves, not to take us very serious, to have a lot of fun, to see and remember that in our essence, all the power lies within us and not externally. And I mean, that's what it's all about. But that's an ongoing lesson. That's never a goal. That's just an ongoing way you're on it. It's a path. It's a mindset, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's a way of looking at life, because if you say, look, it's a playground, you know, there's people look at life different ways. You basically say it's a playground, and because it's a playground, you go about it in a certain way, meaning, well, it's a playground, so let's start playing, you know? Like, there's a lot of toys lying around. There's lots of fun things to do. So let's just go out and do those fun things, right? And other people say, you know, maybe life's a box. Okay, then you look at it that way, right?
I mean, you create the world you're thinking. So whatever you think, the world will look like it. So you create every day your own world. And if you are afraid of things, fear will always be part of your life. And if you see the world as a playground, it will always be playful and fruitful and exciting. And sometimes I just feel like a kid. I'm 40, I turned 45 in May, and I still feel like a teenager inside. And sometimes people were like, oh, why are you not a mom? So I don't have kids. Never happened. But anyway, I always tend to say, let me grow up in this life and then have kids next life. So because I feel so childish, and I see myself as such a different way than others. I mean, you and me, we have to do with a lot of managers, CEOs, and some of them, not all of them, but some of them take it so serious. Themselves, their job. I mean, are you your function? Are you your position? No, you're not. You're Daniel. I'm Sandra. So I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a misfit. Okay, that's one box. That's just a tag. But that's not me at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really interesting. Like, I mean, I want to stay on this topic a little bit because, you know, as you said, like sort of, I don't know exactly how you said it, but sort of like the way you look at life, that's how it becomes, right? It's basically, if you look at
it's self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
Yeah. If you look at life black and white, well, you see black and white, right? I mean, that's pretty much the way it is. It's
pretty colorful.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's fairly simple. I mean, it makes sense, right? But on a daily basis, it's very hard to stay in that awareness, in that presence. Is there like a thing you do every day or on a regular basis to be in that mindset, in that awareness? Because then, you know, sure, it's a habit. Yes, it's a thing that you just do for a long time, and usually, or at one point, it becomes a habit. But is there something that you've done, or you do, or you get involved in order to stay in that awareness?
Well, on the one hand, I think it's part of my essence being that way, because I always was like that. I already painted books and made stories when I was a little child. I always wrote stories from my very childhood days on. So nothing really changed in my life. I still do magazines and do conferences and do talks, and I organized friends going out in the woods and make party there, because I grew up in a very rural, on the countryside. So I always did that when I was a child. I still do it. So that's obviously part of me. But on the other hand, what you said is interesting, because we tend to forget what our essence is, to layer it with all expectations people and the society has. And we put that on our shoulders. We put the whole pressure of the world on our shoulders, and we should not. To put that away again, I started to do a morning ritual. So I get up, like today, I get up at 7 a.m. I bring myself a nice cup of coffee. I read for half an hour. Sometimes I watch some YouTube videos. Then I spend like almost an hour on the yoga mat, do some meditation, take a shower, and then start working. So it takes me up to 2 hours for that whole ritual. But when I started it, I thought I can never do that, because normally I tend not even to pee within a business day. Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't have time to pee, not even that. And first, when I thought about starting that morning ritual, I thought I can never make that more than 4 or 5 days, because I have a constant lack of time. But meanwhile, I do that since several months. It's just a habit. It's normal. It's just part of a normal day. I miss it if I don't do it. And I forgive myself if I cannot do it. So if I'm too tired, or I have an early meeting in the morning, then it's like that. It's okay. So sometimes you have to forgive yourself too for not doing something. And I mean, I'm not a computer, although I don't know if we are not all a computer or a bot. You never know that. That's a whole different story. Elon Musk can do. Well, it's something I do because I heard myself saying, oh, it's such a pity. I have the Bhagavad Gita, I have the Upanishads in my bookshelf. I never read it. I have the Bible, I never read it. I have the Quran and stuff like that. Speeches of Buddha, I never read them. And I thought, why? What waiting for? I mean, and I started with my dad. My dad is somebody with a huge, big heart. And just a good person, a good guy. And he always told me, well, when I'm 65, I stop working, then I go traveling with your mom, I buy a dog, I do all the stuff I like, I go running. So what happened? My mom died of cancer. He got dementia. And now he's sitting with 73 in his home. Not having the life he intended to, because he always wanted to save something for later. But then you tend to risk that you can never experience it. I mean, a lot of good things happened to my dad and with my dad, but it was not like he had planned it. So as I have seen that through the experience with my dad, I tend not to postpone things. But just do it. If I feel like I should do it, let's do it. Don't postpone it, not even for tomorrow. Because what happens tomorrow, you never know. Maybe I drive by car to Zurich. I could die in a car accident. You never know. That may be my last talk with somebody. So what? So that's how it is. I don't think about it. So not postpone anything. Just do it.
Goes back to the playground. It's really interesting. Like it's, I mean, to me, it's fascinating. I mean, not only because you don't check emails first thing in the morning and spend, 7 hours in your inbox.
I started to check my emails. I woke up and first thing in my bed, I was checking emails and text messages. And I realized I don't even breathe now normally. Because you wake up in the morning and you see first emails, you need to troubleshoot something, and you see that, my gosh, what's happening here? And that's not how you should start in the morning. Nobody should start in the morning.
Even with this idea of waking up and going in your email and having to troubleshoot makes me think, okay, I should go to bed with a rifle,
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy, but
look at the people. If you see them at the Zurich Bahnhofstrasse, or you see them at airports, people are always in a rush. They always run. From what? I don't know. It's like they're always running, but at the same moment, they are always waiting for something to come. So they're rushing around, but waiting for something. maybe that never comes. So that's really weird. Not I'm weird. The others maybe are weird.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, and I guess we're all guilty of that at parts of our lives and parts of our days. It's you know, there's no perfect setup.
But why are you talking about guilt?
Say again?
Why are you talking about guilt? You
What do you mean,
mentioned
guilt?
we're all guilty. You said that.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're all
I didn't even
guilty.
realize that.
I was like,
Huh. I don't know.
because guilt is a heavy word. That's not part of my microcosm.
Interesting, yeah. So what would you say if you slip up? Like maybe there's a day you wake up and you just check your emails, you know? Is it more about forgiving yourself then, or like what's...
Yeah, then it's like that. I mean, again, I'm not I'm not a chess player, and I'm not having strategies in life. And if I wake up in the morning and I have this strong feeling to first thing check my emails, then I just do it. Maybe I find something very, very important. But to be honest, what's really important, normally not what's in my email.
And that's
and
really...
I was watching a lot of TED Talks throughout the last months about happiness at the end of your lifetime. And I see that with my dad or with my grandparents. I mean, at the end of your days, if you look back and you think about what made you really happy, it's not an email, it's not an Excel, it's not a Word document, it's not something you mentioned, it's not your to-do list, it's not something you have check boxes for it, it's truthful relationships. That's, at the end of your days, what makes you really happy. And that's something I invest in. Not in emails, but in truthful relationships.
That was a big one. That was a big one. You know, and it's, I feel like sometimes it's easy to cover stuff like that, you know, this important core, like you mentioned before, this is who I am, this is who you are. Sometimes it's so easy to cover these things with all the influences and everything. And if we go back to the core, life is so simple.
Yeah, but that's his story with this fisher who meets the very rich guy. You know it. Everybody knows it. And at the end, again, you sit there and you want to just enjoy life. You want to have maybe a glass of wine, piece of bread, some cheese, enjoy a sundown. That's what people always want. I know a lot of these so-called top 300 riches of Switzerland. I know quite a lot of them. And if you talk with them, what are their visions? What makes them happy? Sit together with friends, with family, having a glass of wine, enjoy life. Not found another company, not work 15 hours per day, not checking 356 mails per day. That's not what makes you happy. And yeah, this business life soaks us in sometimes. You mentioned it. We tend to accept these layers, these expectations people put on us, but you always have to do like that and say, oh, yeah, that. Just remember what I am. Always remember what I am and what I need and not what others need. I don't live the life of others. I live my life. And I'm here for a purpose. I wanted to be here. I wanted to have this experience, this very experience. So I'm not sad about, I had years I was not very healthy. And as I mentioned, my mom had cancer for over 20 years. My dad has multiple sclerosis on top. So I came from a family who was very ill. My sister-in-law just died last year from one day to another. My brother has cancer. So it is ongoing. And I'm meanwhile the only one in my family who's really healthy. And I'm so thankful for it. But I know I have to invest in my health and in me. And make my existence worthy.
Mm.
That's what I try.
Mm. That's a good thing to try every day, every day.
Yeah, sometimes you succeed, sometimes not. Yeah,
Love that.
it's play. We just play.
It's always going back to the playground. This is good. This is a good theme. Very good theme. I mean, if let's just get to that quickly. Is there, like, if you had a couple of last words to the world, what would they be? Is there something that you would just in one sentence say, this is it?
Yeah, we always tend to reduce something to the max and to have very good headlines. I mean, if you really push me to the point, I have to have one final sentence. Then it is the one: just realize and remember that all the power, all the beauty lies within you. That's the only thing I have to say.
Love it. Love it. Is there something, just before we finish the conversation, talk just quickly about what's most exciting right now. Like, you're involved in lots of interesting things. I know that. If you had to pinpoint, like, what is exciting you the most right now?
All the people I meet for my conferences. I mean, and also for the magazine, for the blog. I do a new YouTube video called Ladies Drive Coffee Run. It starts first week of March. So I do also things like you do now with these interviews online. So I meet a lot of inspiring people, and that's really a privilege, doing what I can do with my publishing house, with the magazines, the blogs, the conferences. You're always in touch with people, and it's amazing to see how connected we are. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all one. If we are a bot or not, if you're 100% fully nature, we're also connected. And to feel that more and more coming, to realize that more and more people are aware, they are conscious, they're mindful. That's amazing to see. That's inspiring to see.
It very, very much is. And this interview was very inspiring as well. So thank you so much, Sandra, for being on the show, for sharing your wisdom. We're going to link to the sources below so people can check out more about you and what you're up to. So thank you so much for being on the show.